Hi, this is Tenickia Polk, CEO and publisher. Hi, this is Tenickia Polk, CEO and publisher of TP Rewards Publishing, and we publish books for education and inspiration. We publish books to create community. Our number is 888-882-4093, or visit us online at www.tp-rewards.com. Thank you.
I thought that I was living the American dream. I thought that, everything was going great.
While I was trying to leave, he tried to take my life.
It took me a long time before I could look in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. I saw ugliness because I had been so abused.
I think sometimes they hide from those that care about them the most because they don't want us to see them getting hurt.
That we think if a person don't hit us or cuss us out, they don't love us. That's their way of showing love, but no, it is not.
Hello, welcome and thank you for being here today. We have with us today two wonderful guests who are going to talk to you a little bit more about domestic violence. We have with us our first guest, who is Kari Warren, and with her is Mattie Palmore. They both are the co-founders of an organization called the Women's Group of Mount Vernon. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you tell our audience more about the Women's Group of Mount Vernon?
The Women's Group of Mount Vernon is a peer support group that was founded by myself and Kari Warren about 10 years ago. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. Okay. We were co-workers that were going through going through domestic violence and weren't aware of it.
I started working for the very first time with homeless families, and about 85% of them were female heads of household. And as I'm working with them, trying to get them resources and trying to get them their families stabilized, there was a real common theme of domestic violence having been in their background, which was for them one of the root causes for their homelessness. And they ended up spending so much time just talking to me and said they really didn't have anyone else to talk to. And they were doing the same thing with Mattie. And we just decided, let's just form a little peer support group. And we talked to our boss, and he allowed us to host them a couple times a month in the office at night. And our first group, we had 30 women.
Wow.
Yep. And it's just flourished since then.
We meet every first and third Friday of the month at one of the local police stations, which is a safe place. And they just have to want to make changes in their lives in order to be a part of it. And then another thing too, I might add that we also have male members. So we do not discriminate. There are male victims that have been through domestic violence.
Okay.
We listen a lot because this is a place for friendship for them and a space for healing. And that's what we're about.
Okay. So how, it's a space for healing. So what do you do during these 2 hours? What is
We talk.
Okay.
We talk and talk and talk.
And laugh.
And laugh and laugh.
It's a fellowship. It's just, it's a fellowship.
And sometimes we might go, if the victim is, well, I'll say having a pity party or whatever. Well, sometimes another woman might be in there and say, well, they go at them, at each other to help them to understand that they're not alone.
They're just trying to pick them up.
So they build each other up.
Absolutely.
Yes, they build
and they form friendships outside of the group. And then from there, it evolved to people saying, I don't have transportation to get out to the courthouse for the myriad of protective order hearings and court hearings and custody hearings. So we would take them out there and we would accompany them for support. So we became court support for them. They knew that they could pick up the phone and call us in the middle of the night, and we'd answer, because that typically is when a victim is most emotionally vulnerable.
The thing too is a lot of times when they come to the group, they're basically, a lot of them are in trauma. We may get called to the police station and have to get them into emergency shelter or housing or whatever. They're afraid. They have the children and everything, so it's a traumatic experience.
And domestic violence isn't, there's not a starting point and a stopping point. I always call it the gift that keeps on giving. Just when you think you've gotten to a certain point in that journey and everything's calm, everything's healed, something will happen.
Could you tell me a little bit about your story? You said that you were a survivor. Could you tell me a little bit about your story?
Right. Well, both of us are survivors of child sexual abuse. Mattie and I have walked the same walk. We come from completely different backgrounds, but our lives have been parallel. We're both survivors of child sexual abuse. Both of our marriages were violent. My marriage was emotionally violent. Then I left him, took my daughters, and ended up in a physically violent relationship. And unfortunately, while I was trying to leave, he tried to take my life. The police were called, and I went through this horrible court system that I'd never been in court except for a traffic ticket. All of a sudden, the guy that tried to kill me starts stalking me. And I was trying to get to the police station to file for protective order violations, and I had a new job that I was at. I had 2 small girls, couldn't leave them in the middle of the night, and finally one day I just couldn't take it anymore, and I kept going. You can tell it.
I thought she was losing it.
So nervous.
But she was nervous, and she was scared to talk to me, and she didn't have to be. And then when she told me her story, and I said, bring me your paperwork and let me see it. When I saw the paper, so God had put us together and we didn't even know it. And so her paperwork, when I looked at it, I had filled out the paperwork.
She was
the protective order, I was the magistrate that had signed the paperwork. And I said, okay, so I'll take care of you. And to see
she has ever since.
What was going on and everything, and we were able to get things straightened out, and she went to court, and the protective order, of course they had a hard time serving it because he moved out of state, and that's what perpetrators do. They jump around if they know you're serving papers or whatever.
Right. And then back to the gift that keeps on giving. The children's fathers kept every now and then peppering into my life, and this is the one thing that it happens with victims all the time. Just because you've left an abusive environment doesn't mean it's all gone. There's emotional garbage to have to deal with. I went through post-traumatic stress disorder, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was losing my mind. And I remember on my knees, and I was praying to God, please, just whatever is wrong with me, take it away. I'll do whatever. And it never went, it wouldn't go away. And then I remember saying, I hate you, God. And that's not me. I'm a very spiritual, very faithful person. And then I just made a deal. And I said, if you will get me out of this, if you will get me whole again, I will do whatever it is you need me to do. And I've always felt since then that this is my ministry.
And how can what's your website, and how can somebody get in touch with?
Well, we have an email, and it's womensgroupmv@hotmail.com.
Okay.
And we have a Facebook page. That's really what we stay on. But I work full time, she works, and so the Facebook is what we connect with a lot of community people all across the country. I've even got people in other countries that are on our Facebook page. It's very interesting, and I always wonder, how did they hear about us? But we try to post messages of inspiration, letting them still know, in a way, we're here for you. You're not alone. And articles, and we sometimes have discussions about it. I really try to curb some of the discussions because I've
you
found
have to be careful. You
yeah,
have to
people will
really
talk
be
about
careful.
victim blame, and I've had to.
Yeah.
It's
Monitor it.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, you hear it with the Bill Cosby right now. There's a lot of victim blame, and people will do that on there, and I don't want to go there. I don't want to perpetuate that.
Your main focus, or is your only focus just the peer support?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
No, we've been on Capitol Hill, we've been down to Richmond, we've been everywhere to advocate, to tell the stories,
Oh,
to
okay.
be that voice from
Okay.
our community. We've, poor former chief of police Rohr, he heard from us all the time. Mount Vernon Police Station had exponentially more domestic violence calls than any of the other police stations, and every station had one detective, and Mattie would get him at his community advisory committee meetings. I would write him, I would email him, this isn't fair, we've got to have two. It's just
Because those officers will get burned out.
Yeah.
It's so many cases.
they have 1,600 cases a year. One detective can't handle all of that, and one victim service specialist. So finally, we got that. That was, to us, our biggest accomplishment for the community. And the Board of Supervisors, they've been wonderful in hearing us.
And the state. We get a lot of awards, but it's not about what we do, the different awards or anything like that, because our goal is to help people. If someone calls us in the middle of the night, I can't say where I hold my office hours because I'm going in there. It's an open place, but it's dangerous for me or Kari to go in there. But sometimes the victim will call. So we're not just a support group. We actually go in, help them to get the protective orders or do what they need to do, or just be there to talk. Sometimes we may get a call at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning because the police may say, well, this is somebody that we need to try to help or get whatever. But a lot of times we have to go into some places that are open, but we're taking a chance because as the perpetrator follows them, then we're all in trouble.
So how does this kind of domestic abuse affect children?
It has terrible consequences for children. The rates of depression, learning disabilities, suicide, alcoholism, delinquency, drug use, all of that is just escalated for children that have witnessed domestic violence or been abused in their childhood. My own family is no different. I have children that suffer from depression. I have one that had a learning disability and was functionally illiterate until the 10th grade. She found a way to hide because keeping secrets is such a big part of domestic violence, and not telling on her dad, not telling on anything that's going on with mom. That was just part of her makeup at that point. And because of her learning disabilities and her illiteracy, she attempted suicide. And it was, Fairfax doctors said it was the most horrific, unsuccessful suicide attempt they'd ever witnessed. And it was a direct result of abuse and all the circumstances around. And I've been very lucky. My children are not into substance abuse, they're not into drugs, they're not into, they're not delinquent. They're both now in college doing beautifully. But it's been a really hard journey. And as a mother who struggles just to get past her own issues, you've also got to reach behind, and you've got little kids that you've got to pull up alongside of you. And you try to keep vigilant, you try everything. And I considered myself a really good mother as far as fighting for them since they were so little. But you miss something sometimes, and that's what I missed.
Okay. You said something about, they didn't get into substance abuse. How common is that in these domestic violence situations
It's very common, because, and even for victims, because alcohol and drugs numbs pain. Or sometimes you're already so numb, you just need to feel something. and that is very common for victims and children to turn to as a way to feel something or to deaden a pain.
There's one thing you need to let them understand, that it's not their fault. And a lot of times they think because mom and dad are not together, they were fighting or whatever, it's my fault or whatever. And I love my children and they love their dad. I never talked against them because that's not a good thing to browbeat them. They have to learn in life for themselves and everything. I hope that one day my son will come and sit down and talk, because he won't talk about it at the age of 40. And I see it affecting him and everything. But I'm hoping that one day that he will come, and so that he can heal like I've healed.
Right. And when you're going through the victimization and the trying to heal from it, you are swatting at every fly that it's like you're surrounded by flies, and you're in the schools trying to explain to them why your children might be distant or might be not doing so well at school, or is hyper, or is so clingy and doesn't even want to go to school when they're very little.
I think that the concern that I don't know about Kari, are the unreported cases. That is a big concern, especially now that this the NFL has come out against domestic violence. It has been on the rampant, and you get a lot. And I've had I don't even know who the people are, but I've had several people that contact me that are scared to talk to us.
What are some success stories that you've had within your in the 10 years?
I'm going to say, even though I fled here 33 years ago, I'm going to look at myself as a success story, because a lot of things I would not have accomplished or went forward had I not come here to Fairfax County and have I not met Kari. We began to encourage each other before we stepped out to do this group, because if you can't help yourself, how are you going to be able to help somebody else? So I count myself as a success story, and then we have some other women who have gone through, and now some of them are even ready to publish their book. So because they have been, there've been some horrific stories that these women can tell, and they are ready to talk, but it took them basically all of the 10 years to do this, to get where they needed to be.
It's such a pleasure to be here, and the women's group of Mount Vernon has just been such a blessing to my life. When I met them, I had nothing. I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I'm an overcomer. I was separated from my ex-husband at the time. I hadn't gotten divorced yet, so now my name is Tenickia Polk, not Robinson. Praise God, because that was a fight in and of itself. But the women's group of Mount Vernon provided just about almost everything that I needed. They helped me to get a job. I didn't have a job. I lost all my material possessions. I had a miscarriage at the time. I had what seems like nothing. And God brought me to this community, and I thank God for it. So, they helped me I met Mattie through Good Shepherd Housing, and, they helped me to get a job through the Women's Group of Mount Vernon. The emotional, the spiritual support, they were right there with me.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome back. And we have with us your best friend from childhood, Miss Anita Shiflett. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And could you tell me a little bit more about your relationship and how you perceived her whole ordeal of what she suffered?
Well, what I can tell you is we've been best friends since we were 12. And all through high school, college, we traveled together. We did the normal best friend thing. Phone calls started to not be returned, especially after she had her baby. Our children were very close in age. I wanted to do things together, with our children. We were best friends. I wanted our children to grow up closely. And it was like every time I called, there was an excuse that she couldn't make it, she couldn't do it. and I had annual Christmas parties. And Kari loved to go to parties. She loved to have parties. She liked a good time. And all of a sudden, she was not responding. And to me, these parties were very important because they were big family events, and our families were friends. Our parents were friends. The lights had went out in her eyes 10 years. And when she told me that she had been a victim of abuse, I was shocked.
And that 10-year void, it was tough for me. I missed my friends, I missed everything, but I couldn't, part of me died for a while. And I became agoraphobic. I didn't want to explain to people, I didn't want to end up in public, and all of a sudden, he's pushed my last button, and it's a big ordeal.
The last thing I thought was going on in her house was domestic violence, because my neighbors had children that played softball with her children. And they told me what a wonderful couple, how lucky Kari was to have such a loving partner as her husband. I think sometimes they hide from those that care about them the most because they don't want us to see them getting hurt. My biggest thing to tell people whose friends may be going through this, the one sign that I now know to look for with other friends if it was to happen or family is when there's an absence and they start making excuses not to go to things.
The best thing a friend can do is just validate you and just be there for them if you can, if the victim will let you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing such a personal story. Especially about it's something awkward with friends and not talking to each other, and then now you're here together,
spending every day together.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for sharing it with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
having us.
The book is about me growing up in Mississippi, and I witnessed a lot of poverty, violence, and domestic abuse as a child. My family left that life behind us and we moved to Pennsylvania. I found myself, when I growed up, became an adult, I was drawn to those types of men that was violent. You got to want to come out of situations. And some of us have it that we think if a person don't hit us or cuss us out, they don't love us. That's their way of showing love. But no, it is not. If you find yourself in a situation like that, get out of it. Leave it, because it only get worse.
I thought that I was living the American dream. I thought that, everything was going great. When I think back, I think about how I thought that he met every need. But then on the other hand, I think that that was the fantasy. He treated me very special. And even early in the relationship, he treated me very special. It wasn't until after we got together and we were living together and had been living together for a while that things started deteriorating, And the reality was there was a lot of times that I wasn't the princess, that I wasn't treated special, that I was abused, that I was harassed, that I was followed. All of the dark side of the fantasy world. I truly loved him, even during the time that I was being abused. I think that's one of the things that most people do not understand about domestic violence is that the women truly love the men. I wanted everything to work out. So every time he would come to me and say, "I'm so sorry. You know, I'll never do this again. That's what I wanted to be real, and that's what I wanted to believe. So I chose to believe him. You know, I fell for it every time, and every time it was a lie. He came in, I was in the bathroom, and he was irate because he walked into the kitchen and there was nothing to eat, and me and the kids were nowhere to be found, and he started raising Cain and going through the house. I came out of the bathroom, walked into the bedroom, picked up the gun. I walked out behind him. He was at the front door. He heard me. He turned around, and in language that I no longer use, he asked me what I was going to do with that gun, and I asked him to leave, and he started walking towards me and told me, in essence, I did not have the guts to use the gun, and I did. You know, the decision was made very, very quickly, and it was a decision that ruined all of our lives. I went to prison. I got life in prison.
Hi, this is Tenickia Polk, CEO and publisher of TP Rewards Publishing, and we publish books for education and inspiration. We publish books to create community. Our number is 888-882-4093, or visit us online at www.tp-rewards.com. Thank you.